The focus of this lecture is on your flow, the flow of your presentation. By that I mean, let's take a look at the agenda. The slide sorter view is probably the ideal view to use with respect to your flow. And by flow, I'm talking about the order in which you discuss the various slides. You could change the order or rearrange the slides based on your agenda. So what we're going to do today is move from normal view, which is the view that we've been using to edit and create our presentation. We'll focus more on slide sorter, and we'll go back and forth between the two. The whole idea is to get your flow optimized. We'll then jump into notes pages, which is a really great feature of PowerPoint that helps you prepare. It enables you to capture any notes that you may want to add per slide for each of your bullet points. And then finally, we'll look at the rehearse timings tool. This is something I highly recommend to prepare you for a live presentation. This tool allows you to rehearse and practice giving your presentation. You'll see that it has built-in timers, and we'll talk more about that. You'll see it's a very powerful tool that unfortunately is seldomly used, so I encourage you guys to start using it. What I've done here is I've opened up that staff meeting practice presentation we've developed so far, and what we're going to do, and actually what I've done here, if you look at the agenda, I added a new bullet point. So I added a PowerPoint design rules bullet, which resulted in a brand new slide. So as you can see here, I created a new slide based on the added agenda item. And the first thing I want to show you is how to duplicate a slide. Now, the reason behind this is it enables you to quickly add content to your presentation with minimal time. So for instance, I have 6 bullet points on this slide, which is fine, but you can see the more bullets you add to a slide, the smaller they get. And if you're in a large room, this can be a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this out across 2 separate slides. So let's say instead of having all 6 bullets on one slide, I want to have the first 3, these 3 on one slide, and these 3 on a separate slide. And I'll show you how to do that really fast. But first, let's go to slide sorter view. As you know, we're presently in normal view, which is down here. If I click on slide sorter view, it looks like this. So right away, you can get that bird's eye view I referred to earlier. So you can see we have a total of 8 slides now, beginning with 1, moving on to 2, and so forth. I want to create a 9th slide because to me, although 6 is part of the, and we'll look at the design rules in a minute, as one of the rules of design. You don't want to exceed 6, but at times 6 can still be much. So let's break this out across 2 separate slides. Step 1, select the slide, and here's the keyboard shortcut for duplicate. Control D. So once you select the slide you want to duplicate, hit Control D, and look at that. You get a replica. Now watch this. I'm going to go back to normal view, and to do that you simply have to double click on the slide that you want to work on. So in this case, for PowerPoint design rules, I'm going to double click on it, and you can see I'm back in normal view. For this first slide, I only want to keep the first 3 bullets, so I'm going to delete these, and watch this. I can now make the bullets larger. See that? Now if I go to slide 9, I just want the last 3 bullet points, so I'll delete these and I'll make these larger, and I'm done. I just broke out 6 bullet points, spread them across 2 slides using the duplicate feature, and it's so much faster than trying to recreate a second slide and then repopulating it with the bullet points you need. Control D is so much faster. Let's go back to slide sorter view. I'm going to click down here, and let's talk more about flow. Let's pretend for a moment you decide, you know what, I think that we should discuss LMS upgrade before the new email policy. Well, look at this. All you have to do is click and drag it in front of new email policy, and it's that easy. What if you decide, you know what, maybe it's better that we talk about the upgrade before project updates? Click and drag it here. And let's say you decide maybe project updates should be at the end. You click and drag that down there. You could always hit Control Z to undo, but let's say for now you decide you want LMS upgrade right after the agenda. So right there. Because we made this change, you probably want to update your agenda. LMS upgrade is currently next to the end. It should be right in front of new email policy. So let's go to the agenda. Again, double click to return to normal view. And now all you have to do is click on the bullet point for LMS upgrade, drag it up in front of new email policy, and just like that, it's been updated. So this will match the order of your slides. Let's go back to slide sorter view. Again, to just reiterate, the keyboard shortcut for duplicate is Control D. So just to show you that, if I click on webinar schedule, I hit Control D, it's really easy to duplicate a slide. You can also delete a slide by selecting it and then on your keyboard hitting delete, or you could always right click and delete it that way as well. Either method is acceptable. They do the same thing. So that's how you change the order, duplicate, and delete slides, and we did this all in slide sorter view. Now, what is notes pages? Okay, we also talked about returning to normal view. For instance, if I double click on project updates, you'll see that I'm back in normal view and I'm seeing notes pages. By the way, this notes pages section is adjustable. You can click and drag this little horizontal bar. You see that double-sided arrow by dragging it up and down. Now, I want to see more of my notes because I did type in a few things here. But generally, I use notes pages for this reason. If I have bullet points that have a lot of detail or that require a lot of explanation, sometimes I'll add notes here to help me along as I'm presenting, as I'm doing the live presentation. As you can see here under HRIS implementation, I just added a few additional points, as well as under the new appraisal system. You see that? Now realize I like using bullet points. I don't like having paragraphs of data, although it's perfectly fine. Think of notes pages as the opposite of your slides, because remember, for slides you want to keep things to a minimum. You don't want too much text on a slide. You just want to limit it to bullet points. In the notes pages section, you could type as much data as you want. You could have paragraphs of data in here. It's really up to you. Again, although I'd never recommend reading directly from your notes to a group or an audience, it's there if you need it. So to minimize reading, I avoid paragraphs and I just keep things to bullet points. But it's totally up to you. The cool thing about notes pages is that you could print your notes. So watch this. If I hit Control P or File Print, you'll see that by default, PowerPoint will print one slide per page, an entire slide. So this would take up a whole sheet of paper. I already switched it. So this is what you'll see if you print one slide per page. If you want to print your notes, click on this little drop down here and change full page slides to notes pages. And just like that, you'll see a copy of your slide along with any notes that you keyed in beneath it. On the day of your presentation, you could print this out and use this as your guideline. So it's great. And again, you could put as much information as you'd like here, and it will not appear on your slides when you launch the presentation. Now I'm going to hit escape for a minute, and let's go back here to PowerPoint design rules. Just a few things to review. When creating your PowerPoint presentation, limit your bullets to no more than 2 lines. So as you can see, I have 1 line per bullet right in here. So I only have 3 total bullets, although you can have up to 6. But you saw that when you start adding more bullet points, the text gets smaller. If you're in a large room, that can become a problem. And so you want to minimize that. So what I did is I broke out the 6 across 2 slides. So I have 3 on one, 3 on the next. And you saw how easy that was if you know how to duplicate your slides. So try to minimize the use of bullet points. Ideally, if you could integrate images and just talk about the images, or use them in combination with your bullet points, that's even better. And we'll talk more about that. Well, look right here, white space and image use. When you're using images or bullet points together, try to make good use of white space. Have a lot of white space available. You don't want things running into each other. You want to space them out appropriately so things become easier to read. You don't want things running into each other or crammed into this tiny space. But let's go back here. No more than 6 bullets per slide. We talked about that. But minimize font colors. You'll see that these design templates that we're looking at now, they'll have no more than 3 colors per slide, per presentation. All right, less is more. You don't want to have too many colors. It becomes distracting. It looks less professional when you start using too much color. Animation as well. I'll animate my bullet points for certain slides, but I typically will not animate all the bullets on every single slide. And that becomes especially important when you use images. When you have a lot of images, don't animate every single image. Use it sparingly. And don't forget the cardinal rule. I added this in Again, just as a reminder, key in your data first, your content, your text, format it at the end. And you already know that formatting is a simple click. If you look up here under the design ribbon, select the theme, and you've applied formatting to your entire presentation, which you could then tweak later. But then it's just minimal tweaks. You shouldn't have to spend a lot of time on formatting. But when you follow the cardinal rule, you'll save a lot of time. So now let's take a look at the third and final tool for this module, and it's called Rehearse Timings. If you look to the different ribbons up here, you'll find it under Slideshow. On the Slideshow ribbon under Setup, there is a Rehearse Timings button. When I click on it, up comes your presentation. Essentially, you've launched the presentation, but you'll see that there is a timer toolbar or a recording toolbar that tracks the time spent on each slide along with your presentation time. That's why you have two timers. The first one tracks time per slide, the second total presentation time. Watch as I go to the next slide. This one resets, but the second timer continues on. This is where you would really get into practice mode. You'd sit in a quiet room, launch a presentation, and start talking about the various bullet points. And as you're doing so, PowerPoint tracks the time that you're spending. You go to the next slide, continue your practice talking about each bullet point, elaborating on each one. When you're done, you go to the next slide, and it just continues. You'll see that this resets, but this continues on. I'm just going to go quickly through each slide just to show you when you get to the end, it will tell you how much time you spent on the entire presentation. But it also gives you the ability to save your timings. Typically, I'll say no to this, but just for today, I'm going to click yes to show you what that does. Let's switch to Slide Sorter View. In normal view, you won't be able to see the timings, but when I go to Slide Sorter View, you'll see the timings captured per slide. So this is really good, valuable information for you, because remember, if you're invited to a meeting, whether it's for a client or by your executive team, they'll generally give you a time restriction. They'll still tell you, I only have 30 minutes, I only have an hour, we only have 15 minutes. Well, depending on how much time they've given you, you want to stay within those time constraints. And how do you do that? Well, through Rehearse Timings. Now, one thing to remember is if you save your timings, one thing PowerPoint will do, it'll advance the slides for you automatically. So if I were to launch a slideshow right now, after 25 seconds, this first slide would transition to the next slide. And after 22 seconds, it would then go to here. And after 10 seconds, it would move on. So if you timed this perfectly, theoretically, you could run your presentation without touching your keyboard or mouse. You could just speak to each slide and it'll automatically forward or advance to the next slide as you speak. Now that can be dangerous, especially if you get interrupted. If someone has a question, that slideshow will just continue moving on. And that's why I rarely save my timings. I mean, it's okay to save them, just remember this. If you do save your timings and you don't want to use the timings for the presentation, click on Set Up Slideshow, and by default, Use Timings if Present is selected. That's what automatically advances your slides. Change it to manually, hit OK, and you're good. But you must not forget to do that. Otherwise, by default, PowerPoint will automatically advance the slides based on the timings that are here. So let's review. What did you learn today? We talked about flow, which is essentially the topics you talk about on each slide from 1 through 9 in this instance. Now, we learned today that you can change the order of these slides by simply clicking and dragging the slides while you're in Slide Sorter View. You can duplicate slides. Why would you want to do that? Well, that saves you time, especially if you have a lot of bullet points on a slide and you want to break them out across multiple slides. Simply duplicate the slide, delete the content, and edit as needed. It's a lot faster than having to recreate the slide or spread out the bullets manually. Deleting slides is pretty easy in Slide Sorter View. Simply click on the slide you don't want, hit delete on your keyboard. We also looked at Notes Pages. Excellent tool for preparation. You could add whatever notes you want. You could put in entire sentences and paragraphs into your notes and then print them out as a hard copy. If you need something during your presentation to refer to, Notes Pages is great. And finally, Rehearse Timings. I encourage you to use this feature because, again, it's all about preparation. You get to practice and, most importantly, stay within those time constraints that have been allotted to you.